Hello and welcome to Glorious Purpose, the Loki 2 reaction show from the Comic Crush. This is our first episode recapping everything that's happened, or most of the things that have happened in the first episode of Series 2 of Loki on Disney Plus, which you can watch right now, along with Season 1 and all the other Marvel stuff that's on there. I am He Who Remains. This is She Who Complains.
Not about Loki.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, Liz. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. That's the surprise.
Mystery, yeah.
So I am Paul. This is Liz. You probably know us from before when we did those other shows. If you don't, welcome. You can find us on Twitter at The Comic Crush. Also on Instagram at The Comic Crush. Facebook, just The Comic Crush. And now Blue Sky as well. I don't actually know what my Blue Sky handle is. It's at The Comic Crush something or other. I'm going to find out for you guys now, because I know you're dying to follow us there now that Twitter's become such a shit show. It is at thecomiccrush.bsky.social. So you can follow us there as well. And on Hive, if you like that sort of thing. Liz, how you doing?
Oh, doing swell.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Sorry, very long introduction to get through there. You are, of course, listening to us on Spotify or Apple or any of the other podcast platforms. If video is not your thing, if you are watching, thank you for watching. If you're listening, thank you for listening. So, quick synopsis of this episode, Liz. Loki is suffering from some sort of Marvel mumbo-jumbo ailment. He's uncontrollably bouncing between timelines in fits and bursts, and throughout the episode sprints around the Time Variance Authority, TVA, looking for Mobius, who suddenly doesn't recognize him. I have to stress that is not my synopsis. We've just pulled that randomly from somewhere on the internet. I like the idea of Marvel mumbo-jumbo. I think we're all suffering from a bit of that, Liz. I've got to ask you, as the biggest Loki fan on the planet, did you have any trepidation about this series going in, given what's gone before? Because, you know, we talked privately about Secret Invasion, which, to be fair, we both kind of had a lot of issues with. And in fact, we didn't even finish our show on Secret Invasion because we just really didn't like it.
Well, I mean, yeah, the ending was a kind of a letdown. I'll be frank. You know, I had been pretty excited about Secret Invasion, but I feel like it sort of landed with a little bit of a thud. Yeah, I mean, I think things. I think there's like a feeling across the board that this phase, the multiverse saga, has been sort of uneven. There have been some highs, like Loki season 1, and some lows, like, sort of the last legs of Secret Invasion. But
yeah.
For myself, I really didn't have a lot of doubts, I you know me, I was like, I've been, I've had a countdown clock, waiting from 2021 to now, for this series to arrive. And to, having sat down to watch it finally, it picks up as if it, never left.
Interestingly, with this, they didn't go back to Kate Herron, or at least Kate Herron's not directing, as far as I know, any of this series. Instead, we've got Benson and Moorhead kind of at the helm.
Who, of course, worked on Moon Knight.
Yeah, and did a great job on Moon Knight, and actually do a great job filmically. What did I watch of theirs recently? I think it's one of their sort of bigger budget ones, Synchronic, which also deals with time travel.
Right.
And it is a fantastically eerie, kind of creepy movie to sit and watch. I think it may be on Netflix now, so if you get the chance, take a look, because it is worth watching.
And it's also a new head writer as well. So it's Eric Martin is now the head writer, who I think wrote at least one of the episodes from season 1. That being said, you really wouldn't notice a change in direction. It's very, it feels very seamless.
Yeah.
Transition from that creative team, from the first season to what happened in this first episode.
Yeah, and I've got to say, here's like, I don't necessarily know if this is a problem, but it's certainly something worth mentioning. In watching this episode, and especially kind of watching it a second time, it doesn't feel like the start of a new season. It feels like the end of the last one. It actually feels like this should have been season 1, episode 7 or something. Like I genuinely felt that the kind of stuff we're facing, following on from everything that went on at the end of time with He Who Remains, aka Kang, spilled very directly straight into this episode, but also that the pace the episode was moving at kind of spoke to me like it was like the climax of something. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, I do know what you mean. But I would like to sort of propose that was intentional.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have reasons for that that are rooted right in the episode's title, Ouroboros.
The snake that eats itself.
The snake that eats itself. Basically, time is a flat circle. Is the is sort of the proposition behind that. So yes, it feels like we're at a season finale, almost, rather than a season opener. But is that something that is kind of come back around? I think when we talk about the end of the episode, I can get more into why I feel that way.
That's cool. Okay, we'll table that to there, because I very much omnipresent in this episode is the threat of this Kang. Like, this is what we're expecting, and this is definitely what Loki's kind of warning people against. He's kind of like, yeah, he's coming, or there's lots of these guys coming, and it's going to be a problem. I am chomping at the bit to see a kind of full Kang breakout, and I actually we'll get into kind of some more of that stuff a bit later on, because I'm sure there's other stuff. I mean, we have all the fallout here from Sylvie and Loki kind of taking their separate arguments. And like you, I rewatched the last episode again. I just took a look at that this morning, just to try and recap. And I forgot how short the episode was. It was quite a speedy episode. And 2, of course, that it does end with Sylvie murdering Kang, or murdering He Who Remains, and causing this giant rift in the timeline, which we don't know what the full effect of that is going to be.
Right. But we do know that, it results in Loki sort of being kicked through a time door into the past, and he and Sylvie branching off into different timelines and, with different agendas.
Now, following on from the last episode, Mobius doesn't. Now, here's the problem I had with this. Like, not problem as such, but just something I noticed was that the cliffhanger of season 1 was the fact that Loki arrives back in the TVA, where Kang's presence is clearly more felt. He isn't hiding behind the 3 timekeepers kind of disguise anymore. And Mobius, or Agent B19,
Hunter B15.
B15, yeah, Hunter B15, sorry. Neither of those guys recognize him. But it's almost a pointless cliffhanger, because straight away in this episode they undo it.
Well, they don't undo it.
Well, yeah, they kind of do.
They don't though.
Because he jumps, he keeps. So Loki is time slipping.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, we get to kind of revisit the TVA and some of the characters there, like Casey, who apparently is like now a series regular. He's going to be in it. If not every episode, quite a few of the episodes. And we also meet this new character, which we'll talk about in a minute. But almost instantly, he's first of all, he's not recognised by anyone on TV, and then he is, and it gets unpicked straight away, which I found kind of annoying because it rendered the cliffhanger entirely pointless.
Well, no, he basically, he's recognized by the Mobius of the timeline that he actually came from, but the Mobius of the past doesn't recognize him. The Hunter B-15 of the past doesn't recognize him.
But then immediately you're yanked out of that timeline
into another.
Yeah,
so he's time slipping between the past, the present, and the future.
First argument of the season coming up. But the timelines that they keep showing, the future timelines, are all ones where he's recognized. So they kind of unpick the fucking cliffhanger.
Well, no, once he's explained himself and yada yada, we find out an important detail, which is that his actions in the past can have an effect on the present and future. Yeah. So,
which we see to great comic effect when we meet Ouroboros, yeah. Which was actually one of my favorite sequences. One, because it's like Ke Huy stopped acting for a very long time. I've got a feeling he stopped when he was about 19 and didn't come back to now when he's in his, I think he's in his 40s now.
50s, early 50s.
Yeah. And he went off and he worked for, I think, Young Wo Ping's Wire team, so the guys that did The Matrix. Because he couldn't get work and for various other reasons, he went off shift. So it's great now to see him playing these parts, playing these roles. And I'm sure that part of the reason he was picked for this is because of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a very similar kind of premise.
Right. And for those who aren't familiar or didn't realize they were familiar, he, famously played Short Round in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom and Data in The Goonies.
Yeah. And was a terrific young actor. Yeah. He was also apparently in I think California Man or Encino Man with Brendan Fraser, who's another person who kind of disappeared and then
made a big comeback recently.
Big comeback. I find him an absolutely, even as an adult, an absolutely adorable actor to watch, because I think a lot of what he does is based on this kind of not innocence, but complete acceptance of everything at face value. Like he's genuinely surprised. These answers are genuinely honest. There is a rumor floating around that Obi might actually be the big series villain for this season. I don't know. Do you think that's a bit too much for a stretch?
I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to hear the arguments for it. It does sound like, he's an interesting, character in that, he's been alone in that room for 400 years and, just doesn't seem to have a complaint about it, but maybe it did drive him a little crazy. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he could have cooked up anything there. I actually loved this scene with Loki and Mobius and Obi because it allowed Loki to be a little bit mischievous. It allowed him to be a person who enjoys mischief once more, and it was genuine mischief because of he kept making those little side comments about how long it had been since.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some fun moments, throughout the series because Loki is almost, he's almost a heroic character in this, but we have to remember that this is the Loki who came straight out of Avengers Assemble,
Yeah.
you know, directly. This isn't the Loki we saw evolve and, you know, sort of grow and, you know, develop like a, you know, a more brotherly, you know, relationship with Thor. You know, so it's this is like the Loki who, you know, was the power seeking Loki, you know. In fact, there was a cool little nod to Avengers Assemble when they're Mobius and B-15 are chasing him, when they don't recognize him, and he sort of leaps off the side of the building and lands in the mail truck, is like sort of an echo of the same moment in Avengers Assemble when he jumps into the Chitauri ship off the side of the building.
Slightly less glamorous.
And we also see a little bit of that Loki when the ship crashes into the side of the building. And, you know, whoever was driving the ship, you know, Loki comes out and he's like, oh, I'm fine. And then you hear the woman scream and the ship fall. And he's like, she's fine. I'm sure she'll be fine.
And also, I do, what I loved about this Loki is the egotism doesn't go away. When he talks about his final sort of conflict with Sylvie, and, you know, and he said, oh, she kicked me through a time door. And Mobius is like, oh, so I was going to ask who won, and he was like, no, it was a draw. And we kicked each other through time doors simultaneously. I love that, because that's his ego not allowing him to kind of be
right.
Like, which I thought was genuinely a kind of charming moment in a mix, because up until that point it'd been quite a serious episode. It was quite a kind of, you know, doom-filled episode, and you get to see some wonderful new cast members and people again that I just didn't expect to see. Kate Dickie, I mean, he's a great actor.
Like, you know, her Game of Thrones role definitely, you know, set her up for some villainous typecasting, I guess.
Liz Carr as well, I was really surprised to see. He's a different, like a completely, like I've seen her in stuff a lot in the UK.
She plays Judge Gamble. Is that? Yeah.
And I quite liked her kind of a sort of assertive stillness over it all. Like I really liked that, and of course Eugene Cadero, as we mentioned before, playing Casey. And Wunmi Masaku playing Hunter B-15. They were great. Hunter D-90 and Hunter X5 are two characters I'm sure were in the last season, but I don't really remember.
I don't know if Hunter X5 was. I know Hunter D-90 is the one who pruned. I think he's the one who pruned Mobius. And
that was a nice moment, because he genuinely felt kind of a bit of embarrassment, a bit of like,
don't quote me because it's been a little while since I watched it, but I'm pretty sure that was D-90. And X5 seems to be the right-hand man of General Dox, played by Kate Dickie.
And that's kind of an interesting relationship. There is rumors that maybe she's going to be the big bad of this season.
Right, yeah. I mean, and they have a strange dynamic between them.
I wonder if it's like
kind of intimate, like, you know, either sort of a creepy mother-son thing, like in Game of Thrones,
or I don't know
maybe sexual tension. It's really kind of unclear at this point.
I don't know if Marvel would do creepy mother-son stuff. Maybe it's a touch too far for Marvel. But there is, there's definitely a dynamic between those guys. And as I said, I did love the scene between, you know, the Hunter and Mobius, where he kind of basically got to apologize for him, but was kind of, sorry.
We should talk about that scene in the war room briefly. You know, where basically Hunter B-15 sort of lays the case for not pruning the timelines any longer, and you know, in the revelation, you know, post the revelation that in fact all of them are variants who've sort of been enslaved to the you know, the maintenance of the sacred timeline and had their memories wiped.
And I actually forgot that they go back in time to see Renslayer's time, or at least one of her variations, don't they? The school teacher. I'd completely forgotten about that. And B5 is the one leading the charge to kind of tell the truth. It's an interesting question that's raised there, because as He Remains brought up, yeah, you kind of got to prune the timeline, otherwise it's going to get out of control. But also, should people just be free to make those choices? I mean,
right. It's so you almost have like where we left Loki and Sylvie. Loki seems to be in agreement now that the maintenance of the timeline is how it should be. He seems to think and you have to wonder also, does he think that he should be the one to maintain it, as He Who Remains proposed in the season finale of season 1, whereas Sylvie obviously threw that idea out the window, and on her side is the potential for free will, but also the potential for the timelines going out of control and being sort of a magnet for all these Kangs to sort of come out of the woodwork and cause more destruction.
And there is this thing now that's kind of lingering in my mind, and I think has been raised online as well, that is this going to be a reboot of the Marvel Universe? Potentially, because we are like, I in watching this, one of the problems I had with this, not problems, but it's almost like missed opportunities. It's like, actually, this should be the movie. This should be the big thing happening at the end of the movie, or this should be how the next one starts. This should be the thing.
Well, I mean, Loki season 1 was the same way. I mean, that was like what laid the groundwork for all the multiverse saga stuff, in the really like in the most overt way.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like they are sometimes missing opportunities there to and leaving kind of money on the table, if you like, with some of the movie stuff. It's just like, no, really, please, this should be the because it's a character that people love and would flock to see.
I think maybe it's just the potential for the longer form storytelling to really get into all those details and be able to explain it in 6 hours instead of 2.5.
I've got to say, in saying all this, I realise it's a complete reversal of what my position has been on a lot of comic stuff over the years, because my position has always been, no, please do this stuff on TV so you can get all these little intricacies in and get all these little connections in. And now I'm arguing, no, actually, this should be the movie.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm a complete paper tiger where that comes in. But I just felt that, it's like, oh no, actually, the kind of ramifications of this are big enough to be the film. And maybe by 2025 or whenever it is, they're proposing that the Secret Wars movies here, is it 2024 or 2025?
Who knows with the writer's strike stuff having happened, but
I know that we should talk about some of that, the ramifications of that at the end of the show, actually. But yeah, I think it's big enough to sustain the kind of filmic I think it's probably big enough at this stage. And there were one headline I saw recently was Marvel is a failed state, and Loki season 2 and it's just like, so going in, I was almost like, oh, is this going to be terrible? Is this going to be terrible? And I was pleasantly surprised to find it was not terrible. It was actually
the first season was great, and the second first episode of the second season really just continued from where it left off. It really there was no noticeable change in quality at all.
Yeah, I mean, it is just that thing of some of the stuff's been really hit and miss, and you know, all that kind of stuff. We've got to talk about what happens after the war room stuff, which is, you know, where they're told they've got to kind of.
Right. Let's just briefly, before we leave the war room, let's briefly mention how Loki comes in, and he is in a different version of the war room, in the past, and the war room is lined with the faces of Kang, and he listens to a message that had been recorded that we find out is for Ravonna Renslayer, who apparently.
Wasn't it a conversation between them?
Or it was it was a conversation between Kang and Ravonna Renslayer, and we find out that where she had gone off at the end of season 1 to find him. It seems that she did find him, that she was instrumental in helping him win the multiversal war, and that he thanks her for having been on his team. And so it seems that they did find each other. She helped him. They worked together, and we don't really know where she is right now. But one would have to sort of assume that she's still in alliance with Kang.
Which is a big mystery because we don't see what happened to her at the end of season 6. Season 1, sorry, episode 6. It all happens off screen. And Mobius hasn't really kind of given any answers yet as to what has happened to her. It's also quite a shift from their relationship from Kang's and Renslayer's relationship in the comics, because they are lovers, I believe.
Yes, and Kang, so basically, but like doomed lovers. So he's, in every, that's a big part of his motivation in the comics, is to find a timeline in which they can be together, but that it's sort of never meant to be. In every timeline that he finds her, she either dies or spurns him, doesn't remember him. So that's kind of their dynamic in the comics. Who knows how far that will go in the show.
I wonder how many versions of Kang we'll see in this, because I wonder, because we've already seen I can't remember. Is it Mr. Victor Timely? That guy from at the end?
He was alluded to in
Ant-Man.
I think we actually saw him in the post credits of Ant-Man, but he was alluded to in the season finale of season 1. There's when Kang starts to explain the different versions of himself, he mentions a scientist, who sort of first encounters the other version of himself, and yada yada. And then in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man Quantumania, we actually see Victor Timely, as well as Loki and Mobius, at some point in the past. So we kind of know that at some point we're probably going to find out, a larger context for that.
I'm as a speculation sort of gambit now. I'm going to say Rama Tut is probably going to pop up. I think
who of course we did see at the end of Quantumania as one of the many Kangs.
But I've got a feeling we're going to see him, and also we may actually see Nathaniel Richards at some point, like the Karma kind of
right.
Okay, that would be interesting.
Maybe we will.
So they're told that things are about to come crashing down, and they've got to kind of pluck Loki from every timeline.
Right. So basically, Loki's time slipping rather is a problem. It also looks very painful. And he's unable to stay in one timeline for any, sort of period of time. He has no control over it. So that is what they approach OB for. They go to what's the name of his department? It's like
repairs and
advancement.
Repairs and advancement. Yeah.
And as we kind of mentioned, that conversation, that Loki has with OB in the past and Mobius has with him in the present, plays out, and they create this device, which is a temporal aura extractor, which they need to bring to the temporal loom in order to basically extract Loki's aura from the time stream, so that he can only be in one place at any given time. But there could be catastrophic ramifications if they do this wrong for both Mobius and Loki.
And again, another moment where Loki slips between the past and the future of the TVA, because we've got that wonderful bit of graffiti skin question mark from Mobius, who's been told that his skin might be flayed off.
Right, yeah, which is like very humorous.
I actually kind of love those scenes as well, and the stuff with Mobius in the spacesuit with the little crack in it just there that you can see was great.
Right, piece of duct tape.
Yeah. It's still I still think in these scenes it's very Doctor Who.
It is. Oh, totally.
The difference being the Doctor Who looks like it was put together with duct tape. But I think there's completely kind of that sense. And also this kind of very much reminding me in some of the design stuff at Guardians 3. I feel there's a kind of overhang there, not necessarily intentionally, but there is a definite overhang with the giant puffy spacesuit. And there was a lot of fun to be had with those kind of moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a kind of a comically, like, big puffy, radiation suit. It's like, it just looks ridiculous.
And still questions remain. Who was on the phone?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So, as you say, this whole episode felt like a season finale. Especially that last leg of it where, it's like, oh, everything's moving at this breakneck pace. They only have, minutes for Loki to, be in the right place at the right time. And for, OB to press the button at the right time. And Loki needs to prune himself at the exact right moment. And, Mobius needs to attach the temporal aura extractor at the right moment. So it's all this like, really fast paced, and there's a lot of suspense, and Loki of course slips into the wrong timeline, at the wrong moment. So he has to hunt for a time stick and he can't find one.
I've got to say, it also reminded me of when we do podcasts, Liz, because it was OB telling Loki, you've got an hour and then you've got 5 minutes. It's a bit like working with Liz.
Right.
Like,
oh, really? Yeah.
I'm going to say. You think you've got an hour, but actually you've only got 5 minutes. But I genuinely loved that moment. It was a nice bit of deadpanning from Kay Kwan as well. But yeah, and we see Sylvie for a moment,
right?
Just for a moment.
So so here's the thing. Okay, so at the beginning of the episode, you said, well, I don't know if it's criticism or not, but I kind of felt like this should have been the season finale rather than the season opener, or the season finale of season 1, or whatever. So this is where I kind of propose that actually all of this is on purpose. So Loki, he's running around, he's trying to find a time stick, it really looks bad for him. Looks like he's not going to make it. But then all of a sudden he hears this phone ring and he feels the instinct to stop. And, it's in front of the gold elevator doors that had been like the doors into the, timekeeper's, sort of vault, if you will, like, and so it's, and there's the phone sitting outside, and, these doors all of a sudden are pried open from the inside, and we see that it's Sylvie, and she says, there you are. And like she's been looking for him, or she expected to see him. And he, of course, doesn't know, as far as he's concerned, he had no idea she would be there. And just as he's laying eyes on her, someone prunes him from behind, and we don't see who it is. So, I think, in the spirit of the title of the episode, Ouroboros, that we've just seen the end of the show. So
Brilliant, Liz.
We don't know
Brilliant.
who
Yes.
came up behind him, but somebody knew to be there and to prune him at that right exact moment. Who is it? Is it another version of Mobius? Is it another version of Sylvie? Is it another version of Loki?
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So that's your prediction for the end of the show.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. Good, because I was hoping because I didn't really feel this episode gave us a ton to speculate about, because one of the things we like to do on these shows is kind of guess what's going to happen next. We're usually wrong.
Sometimes we're right.
I am. I think we've got a few right in the past, mostly by accident. But Liz, I actually didn't think about that, and that is a really, really awesome point. That this could actually be the end of the show. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we get there. I mean, obviously they go through the whole kind of MacGuffin inside the machine and all that kind of space jump stuff, which I again really loved. The idea of trying to run in that spacesuit, as Mobius said, and then Loki reappears. Which is really interesting. It's like which version that you bring up the point, which version of Loki is that jumps through the time stream and grabs Mobius? Because by very definition, it can't be the version of Loki that was already looking for the time stick, can it? It can't be him, because we've just seen him die. Or have we? Were we looking at another? We're looking at another version of Loki from earlier on in the show.
We don't know.
I'm jumping all over the place. Who knows? I think, oh God, you've really given me a lot to think about there, Liz.
Yeah, little food for thought.
I hate it when she's right.
It happens so often.
Shut up. So, yeah, but all in all, great episode. I'm really kind of keen. It's a shame that we've now got to go. I mean, I guess it's the same amount of time you would have had to go from episode to episode last time, but we've got to go all the way back to Fridays now.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's just how it's going.
But yeah, I've got high hopes for the next episode. We've got to talk about the stinger.
Of course. I mean, yeah.
Because Sylvie arrives in 1982, Broxton, Ohio. Oklahoma, sorry. Does
Broxton,
that have...
Come on, of course. That's like the most significant sort of Thor place on Earth.
Is it? Why?
So, because... Okay, so from the Straczynski run, when they are misplaced, and they pick a place on Earth after, post Ragnarok, and they have to build Asgard somewhere on Earth. They build it right above Broxton, Oklahoma.
Right. Okay.
Right, and this also has a significance for the character of Sylvie. So, we talked about this in season 1, and even though the show version of Silky is a variant of Loki, she's actually an amalgamation of two different characters. She's technically a Loki, but really what they drew inspiration from is the character of the Enchantress, specifically the Sylvie Lushton version of the Enchantress. So that version of the Enchantress was actually a human girl in the city of Broxton, Oklahoma, who Loki tricked into believing she was an Asgardian, and gave her powers and everything. So the fact that we find our Sylvie here is kind of almost like this role reversal from what we see she's about to do. She is, from the looks of it and from what I've seen in trailers, is almost going to pretend to be human.
I actually think that a lot of the next episode will be about persuading her to come back and sort of join the TVA and help Loki from the looks of things. She'll be
right. I mean, yeah, we've seen. I mean, I don't know. Don't want to spoil anything for anybody who didn't watch trailers, but the implication is that she stays around that McDonald's and sort of sets up camp, just trying to have a normal life. We see her, so let's talk about the stinger a little more. We see her arrive in Broxton, Oklahoma in 1982. She finds herself in a McDonald's. And, of course, this is a very foreign experience to her. So she just says she wants something that's already dead, that doesn't have a face.
Yeah, was it no rat, no squirrel?
Yeah, no rats, no squirrels. Something that's already dead, doesn't have a face. But so then the cashier starts listing off menu options, and she sort of tunes out, and she's looking around, and she kind of sees all of these people, families sitting there, and friends, and all these things that she never got to have, because her timeline, was pruned.
Do you not feel to a certain extent we're back in One Division territory almost?
Almost, like, I think that she didn't create this place for herself.
No. But I mean, there are resonances with Americana and what people consider to be Americana.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And the domestication of superheroes, which I always think is a theme that I quite latch onto. There's definitely that, and
right. She's just gone straight from murdering, the last man remaining at the end of all time, and goes straight to McDonald's.
I bet McDonald's are loving it. I'm sure this has been done fully with their. In fact, I think it has been. Didn't they set up like a burger bar?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think so, as like a promotional thing, right?
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes from there. You know what I mean? Like, will Sylvie kind of refuse to be part of the whole, the sort of next steps that Loki's going to take? Because also now, what is going to be the drive of the show? Is it going to be Kang already? I don't know. I think, is it too early for that? Is it too much to have all the Kang suddenly start appearing? It might be interesting to see some alternate versions of Marvel heroes and villains. I think there's a lot they could do with that, depending on how much they want to spend and who they want to get back. I'd love to see Chris Evans back.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, I mean, because we did see him actually at the beginning of season 1 for just a minute. You see him in that recap scene with Loki, at Avengers Tower at the end of the Battle of New York.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of puzzled over what's going to happen there, and there is more. I mean, there's more new kind of Marvel stuff coming. I do want to talk a bit about the sort of after effect that the riot strikes had, because apparently Ironheart is now sort of delayed until at least 2025 from the looks of things, from apparently documents that they've even got people looking at the copyright office now to look at Marvel's filings. Apparently that's not coming to at least sort of September 2025, which is a long freaking delay.
Delay, yeah.
Especially if it's got to fit in with things like Armor Wars, which is supposed to be just around the corner. And also, we've got Spider-Man Freshman Year coming, which is an animated show set before Homecoming.
Right.
So that might be fun to watch. I don't often dig into the animated stuff because I'm just not that in tune with it, I find. Although, I remember you telling me that I should definitely watch What If, and I'll probably get around to that eventually.
Because it's actually important, in terms of stuff that happens in the films.
Well, I mean, Marvel stuff is kind of, at the moment, it is in a flux, I find. But I also find that they pull themselves out of that flux on a regular basis. But I don't know how much the audience will take one good, one bad. Do you know what I mean? Like one good show, one good film for every one good or bad, bad film or show. And that I'm kind of a bit dubious about. And of course there are arguments. I have been watching stuff lately on what is the life cycle of superhero movies? It's a really great video essay I watched from the Nerd Writer the other day, and I do suggest people go and seek that out. And of course, there was a great Patrick H. Williams video on Who Killed Cinema, which is a really good video to watch. It's very long, but is worth checking out. And of course, one of the culprits he kind of picks out is Marvel, which is kind of an interesting argument to make. I'm not sure how I feel about it. We've got the Marvels coming next month, which I'm sure you and I will hopefully get on this medium here and discuss. But yeah, for the next 5 weeks, here we are for Loki. The show I swore I'd never come back and do.
And here we are.
You can blame Liz for this, folks. She persuaded me to do this all again.
No, I'm so happy to be here.
I am actually really happy to come in and discuss this particular show, because I did really enjoy season 1. Was it the strongest of the shows? I don't know. It was right up there, though. I think definitely one of the stronger things that Marvel put out in the last couple of years. I'm looking forward to season 2. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Liz, anything else you want to add before we go?
I think we've kind of covered, all the major beats, but yeah, I'm really just super thrilled to be back in the TVA,
Yeah.
It's and like I said, it just feels like, didn't skip a beat, like you're right back in it. So I think what I'll do this week is just rewatch the whole first season again, just for fun, because, I'm just really excited to be sort of back in this little pocket of the Marvel universe. So
any quickie recommendations you can make for stuff that people might want to read?
Sure, yeah. I mean, this has been a great time for Loki books. If you're like looking to just kind of dig into the character, they just released in the Modern Epic collections the Kieran Gillen Loki series from 2011, which is one of my all-time favorites. I've recommended it over and over. I just think it's it just kind of it tells you everything you really need to know about the character, and it does so in a wonderful way. It's like the kid Loki story, that sort of it changed the status quo for the character in the biggest way, possibly in the history of the character, really, and sort of reset him and kind of focused in on what his morals really are and who he really is, and it's wonderful. So yeah, both volumes of that are available. It tells the whole story, and it's wonderful.
I am currently reading that, funnily enough. Is that pre-siege or post-siege?
Post-siege. So siege, so in Siege, Loki sacrifices himself, sort of for the greater good, which is,
very unlike Loki.
Well, it is unlike Loki, but it also isn't. Like, you kind of, if you're a fan of the character, it's like deep down, like there is good in him, even though he sort of constantly does bad things. And that's why Thor decides to bring him back, because he misses him, and that's how he sort of is reborn in the form of a 10-year-old boy. And then you get to sort of play with nature versus nurture, and all of those things in that story. And recently there was also a really great miniseries from Dan Waters that I really enjoyed. It's just a 4-issue miniseries, just finished. A lot of those issues will probably still be on these shelves at your local comic shop. They are at my store, and it's really great. I loved that too. It's again, it's. Any good Loki story is going to sort of go, dig into themes of like morality and, he's a character that walks that balance of, you know, being good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, definitely, and it's one of the reasons why that makes the show so enjoyable, and has made his character kind of leap from a character that wasn't supposed to be that huge, really, and to figuring quite significantly in the MCU and things like that. If you guys want to read Siege, it's available. Big chunks of it are available, including the main series, in the Comic Crush web store right now, along with the very first appearance of Kid Loki. And some other great Thor, the complete Straczynski run that we touched on briefly, and the Kieran Gillen stuff is all right there in the Comic Crush web store right now. It's available now for you to buy if you want to do that. Probably UK viewers only though, unfortunately, because can't do international posting at the moment in the UK. It's extremely difficult and expensive to do. But do take a look at the web store. Always lots of stuff, always lots of great Marvel, always lots of great DC, and I'm adding more nearly every day at the moment. So do take a look at that. If you want to sign up to the Patreon, please do that. There's a link in the description. It's just a link tree, so it's one link. Hit that, and that'll take you to all our kind of extra stuff. Patreon is £2 a month. And you can get discounts in the web store. You get a bunch of other stuff. You get extra videos. Hopefully, we'll get to do an extra video or two for this series. Maybe talking about some of the comics. I'd love to do that. Liz, thank you very much for being here. You can catch up with Liz every Wednesday on the Facebook page. Does it usually go onto there? The Facebook page for That's Entertainment in Massachusetts, which is a very fine comic store, and Liz does their sort of introduction to the weekly comics, which are always good fun videos to watch. It's always great here listening to Liz talk about comics. You can catch me at Gosh Comics at least once a week, usually on a Sunday. Pop in and say hi, and I will happily show you some good comics there. Liz, thank you. It's good to be back.
Good to be back.
We'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.